The meeting will come to order. Please turn off or silent electronic devices. Could you please do the roll call?
Yes. Ken Gillespie.
Here.
Nick Burns.
Here.
Nina Beasley.
Here.
Cindy Bessie.
Here.
Larry Vanderburg.
Here.
Thank you.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alright, so are there any corrections to the minutes? I believe I had one question about the minutes, and it's on page 4, and it's on the second public hearing, and it said there was a motion to recommend approval to the city council with the consideration of barricades placement to be approved by city engineer and seconded by Commissioner Beasley, but it didn't say who motioned it, and I wasn't sure if we needed to have that or if
Oh,
it's.
definitely do. Yeah, I will pull up my notes. Thank you. And
Okay.
put that in there and thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Can I propose that we actually hear you? I can't.
Oh,
hear
I'm
what
so
you
sorry.
say.
I'll try to speak louder.
Just turn the speakers up or something? 'Cause
We
I
don't
no idea
have
what's being
speakers.
said.
I'll just try to talk really loud. Or if you'd
Okay.
like, you can sit a little bit closer if that would help you to hear.
I don't think that's the point.
Okay. All right. So is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Okay, we will now move on to our first action item. And I will now open the public hearing for the consideration of the City Hall property amendment to the zoning map. And following the public hearing, the commission will consider all relevant evidence and legal criteria stated in the Rathdrum City Code and give its recommendation. So are there any conflicts of interest, ex parte communications, or bias that any of you need to put on the record?
No.
No.
All right, is there any member of the audience who wishes to challenge the participation of any commissioner based on the appearance of fairness grounds? All right, seeing none. This hearing shall proceed as follows. The staff will introduce the application with a brief overview. The applicant will present their application. Staff will present their report. The members of the public will have the opportunity to testify, starting with those in favor, then neutral, then those opposed. If you would like to speak, you must sign in, including your address, on one of the public hearing comment sheets and provide the sheet to me or staff, which we already have some up here. When your name is called, please approach the microphone and state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Comments should be addressed to the commission, be relevant to the information in the record and the applicable legal criteria that the commission will be considering for this application, which I stated earlier, and should not be personally derogatory or repetitive. Public comment will not be accepted out of order from seated members of the public or after the hearing is closed. So please make sure you speak during your time provided if so motivated. Following the public testimony, the applicant will have a chance for rebuttal. Does anyone in the audience have any questions about these rules?
Will there be just any kind of Q&A period?
No, you will give your public comment. They will have an opportunity to rebut, and then if we wanted to ask you questions, we could ask you questions. But this isn't like a workshop. It's an actual hearing.
You're welcome to ask your questions during your testimony, and then when the applicant gets up to rebut, if they so choose to answer your questions at that time, they can. That makes sense.
So my concern is, I came here partly to learn enough to ask questions. I have some concerns, but I don't have a statement to make or anything, but I think enough of us have concerns that there needs to be a time where we can actually just discuss things openly.
So there was an email address provided in the publication, in the published notice, that if you had questions, you could email, and staff would have answered all those questions for you prior to this hearing. This hearing is not the place that has the back and forth for questions and answers at this time.
All of the staff materials, my staff reports, analysis, code analysis, have been on the website, the city's website, for about 2 weeks. So that people can go and research the project and determine those questions and send them to me, so I can provide you answers.
And you can send in questions after this as well. Those items will still be posted. There still will be a public hearing at council after this. So if you listen and you don't have your questions answered, feel free to email that email address with your questions, and James will answer them for you.
Okay, so a public hearing at council, that'll occur in the future?
Yeah, it'll be,
It's already scheduled for January 8th. There are 2 public hearings required for annexation and zone change applications.
Okay.
So the second one, for this and the following public hearing, will be held at council on January 8th. Those notifications are required by law to be in the newspaper at least 15 days prior to that. They'll be run next week. So those will be going out.
To his point, though, this letter was sent, and you said about 2 weeks ago, was only sent out to the property owners within 300 feet of the boundaries.
Yes, it's also posted on the city website and the kiosk outside and noticed in the
I
newspaper.
understand that, but it affects everybody in Rathdrum. I was down at Numerica Bank this afternoon, or just before this meeting, and they had no idea that there was a proposed site, 750 homes going in here between Borkle and Lancaster, or not Lancaster, Meyer Roads. So that traffic does seriously affect the city of Rathdrum. It should have been sent out to more than just people within
alright,
300 feet.
you can proceed.
There's, the law dictates how far they need to send out the notification, and so they follow what the law dictates that they need to send it out to. If we wanted to do that, we'd have to change it in the city codes and in the statute.
Just making that point.
Absolutely, thank you. So the staff will now provide overview. Or,
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry.
In this particular
I'm
case, the
s-
applicant and the
I am
staff
so
have
sorry.
decided-
I was reading the wrong part of my script, so I got it wrong. So, so you are not going to provide a.
I am.
Yeah, the staff will introduce the application with a brief
And
overview.
give my report.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm the
All right. Okay. Thank you. I'm so sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, this action is a rezone request by the city of Rathdrum for property owned by the city of Rathdrum. It is a request for a zone change on approximately 30-acre parcel owned by the city. It's at the northeast corner of the intersections of Lancaster and Radcliffe Street. The current zoning on the property is medium density residential R2. The requested zone change is to C1 general commercial for the southern 365 feet of the subject property, with the balance of the property to be rezoned to P, public use district, for the development of a new city hall, police station, park, and recreational facilities. On the slide there, you see the zoning map on the left showing that the property is zoned R2. On the right is a satellite imagery showing the property. We've got K-Tech directly, or NIC and K-Tech to the south of us. Got residential properties to the north and east. That little sliver on the far right bottom corner is actually owned by the Lakeland School District. It is the site for a future high school, and the property on the bottom left is not within city limits at this time. The property was incorporated into the city of Rathdrum by ordinance 341 all the way back in 1993. It was zoned R2 at that time, and it was purchased by the city in September of 2015 with the intent of constructing new city hall on the property. That, what you see on the slide is a proposed potential layout for the property showing C1 commercial zoning on the Lancaster frontage, with the balance of the property in public use with civic facilities and parks, as you can see on there. Rathdrum City Code, Title 15, Chapter 4, Zoning Districts, offers no requirements for the placement of the public use district. It merely states that the purpose of the P district is to provide an area for public service uses. The existing land use designation is set forth on the adopted future land use map, which is a component to the comprehensive plan, is public, and that designation reflects lands that are public or are otherwise owned by a government agency. Their uses may vary from parks, government buildings, education facilities, and parcels containing infrastructure. As the property is already designated for that use, no comprehensive plan analysis is required, although I did provide one with my staff materials on the website. Now, you might ask, why are we asking for commercial frontage on Lancaster? This little diagram shows us Highway 41 all the way on the left side. Those properties marked C2, Highway Commercial, are already within the city. The properties in the middle are the properties subject to the Meyer-Lancaster annexation, which asked for commercial frontage on Lancaster as well, and we are just tying into that for a commercial corridor on the eastern half of Lancaster, or the western half of Lancaster, east of Highway 41. Now, we are asking for conditions for the commercial zoning. We want to exclude some uses for permitted developments on the property. These would be sexually oriented businesses, adult activities as defined in the code, and any associated retail activities that might go with them. Automobile, light truck, RV dealerships, motorcycle, ATV dealerships, marine boat dealers, department stores and warehouses, automobile repair services, quick lubes, rental agencies, or dog boarding services and daycares, as we do think that those would be conducive to either the park uses, the city hall, or in keeping with the residential nature of the neighborhood lying to the east of the property. And that is it. You have my staff report, you have my analysis, and all the duties on the website. We are asking for a rezone.
Alright. So the applicant will, are there any questions on the staff report?
No.
Alrighty. Okay, so the applicant will present their application.
That's it.
Oh, it's you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, my brain sometimes goes a little bit with the
This
procedures.
is a little odd where we
So,
are.
all right. So is there anybody that would like to testify in favor of this zone, rezone?
Sir, was your paper for there, did you want to speak,
I have questions.
okay,
On this particular
on the city hall?
rezone?
Rezone,
Well, on the
Okay.
whole thing,
okay.
looks like there's gonna be a basketball court in my backyard.
Okay, would you like to come up and offer public comment and
Yeah.
state your name and address? And so it's Bruce.
Bruce Frank, 13283 North Zodiac Loop.
Okay.
I see there's gonna be a basketball court in my backyard.
Right there, yeah.
Is there gonna be lights there? Are they gonna play at night?
I'm not sure.
Can-
That's something.
So
the city
the park area hasn't been planned, that was just for scale, that they put those courts in there for scale. The park area has not yet been planned, on what it will include, and it's likely to not include basketball courts. But the Parks and Rec Commission will be meeting to discuss that more,
Okay, that's good to hear.
yes.
Okay, thank
And I
you.
will make sure to share your concerns with our Parks, department, so that they.
Yeah, I couldn't hear basketballs all night long, it just wouldn't work very well.
I believe there's a 10 o'clock. You can't be in the parks.
10
Yeah, that is
o'clock?
correct as
Yeah.
well, yes.
All right. Is there anybody that is neutral that would like to testify? Okay. Is there anybody that is opposed that would like to testify? All right. Okay, so is there any rebuttal to the testimonies that were made?
None.
All righty. The public hearing is now closed.
Straightforward.
I got a question for you guys. Why don't you include liquor store to that commercial one zoning?
Because a convenience store could be there and would be able to sell alcohol, and the police did not put a liquor store as an area of concern for them. The list of exceptions was city administration, planning, legal, and the police department who were asking for those things to be included or not.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
Close the public hearing and
Oh, I
then
already
we'll
did.
do the- Oh, you did? Okay, sorry.
No worries.
Thank you.
All right.
I'd like to recommend that the city council approve the rezone for the new city hall.
And you said recommend?
Yes.
Okay. He recommends approval.
Okay,
Is there a second?
I second it.
and a second?
I second it.
So roll call vote, Ken,
Aye.
Nick,
Yes.
Nina,
Aye.
Cindy,
Yes.
Larry.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, motion passes. All right, we will now move on to the consideration of the Hayden Homes Aristad Amendment to the zoning map. I will now open the public hearing. Following the public hearing, the commission will consider all relevant evidence and legal criteria stated in the Rathdrum City Code and give its recommendations. So, are there any conflicts of interest, ex parte communications, or bias that any of you need to put on the record?
No.
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 All right, is there any member of the audience who wishes to challenge the participation of any commissioner based on the appearance of fairness grounds? All right, so ground rules for the hearing. This hearing shall proceed as follows. It'll be exactly the same as the previous one, but I still should go through it exactly. So the staff will introduce the application with a brief overview. The applicant will present their application. Staff will present their report. Members of the public will have an opportunity to testify, starting with those in favor, then neutral, then those opposed. If you'd like to speak, please sign in, including your address on the paper, and again, if you're for or against. When your name is called, please approach the microphone and state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Comments should be addressed to the commission, be relevant to the information in the record, and the applicable legal criteria that the commission will be considering for this application, which I stated earlier, and should not be personally derogatory or repetitive. Public comment will not be accepted out of order from seated members of the public or after the hearing is closed, so please make sure that you speak during your time provided if so motivated. Following the public testimony, the applicant will have a chance for rebuttal. Does anyone in the audience have any questions about these rules? All right, seeing none, the staff will introduce the application with a brief overview.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen of the commission, this item before you is the Hayden Homes Aristad rezone. The applicant being Hayden Homes, represented by JUB Engineers, and the owner of the property being the Ragnar Aristad Living Trust. It is a rezone request from industrial to MR mixed residential for approximately 124 acres of approximately 156 total acres of property. Brad Marshall of JUB Engineers will be presenting for the applicant.
All right, so the applicant will present their application.
Tell me when to mash. That's kind of where we're at.
Okay. Yep, clicker.
Don't.
So are you gonna do my slides for me?
I've got 'em. Just tell me when to change them.
Oh, okay. You ready?
Mhm.
Good evening. I'm Brad Marshall with JUB Engineers. Address is 7825 Middle Arc Way in Coeur d'Alene. With me tonight is Eric Scheck, who's with Hayden Homes, again representing the applicant. A little introduction. JUB Engineers has been here 50 years in the community. I've been a planner in this area for 30 years. The opportunity to represent the college, the school districts, our hospital, and development interests. It's nice, again, a pleasure to represent the Aristads and Hayden Homes. To kind of bring it home, pretty familiar with Rathdrum. In 1992, I actually purchased my first house here on 1508 Wright Street. So I've had the opportunity to see the city grow and change and so forth. that, I'll go to the next slide. I want to thank the commission for your time, for volunteering your time to our community, and to be here tonight. I also want to thank the staff. You've had the opportunity to have an excellent staff, from Leon, your city administrator, to James, to Emily. Great group of people to work with. We've had a chance to review the staff report and the consistency analysis for the zone change and the comprehensive plan analysis, and would agree with that report. And it's very well done, and very favorable to the request. Next slide. Again, this is a partnership between Hayden Homes and the Aristad family. Again, as James mentioned, seeking a zone change of 124 acres to the mixed residential zone, not multifamily. The mixed residential is a mix of single family, really zoning districts. So there's no apartments, no multifamily, just single family homes. Yeah, not to say that we didn't look at it, because there is a huge demand in our community, in our county, our state, across the country, quite frankly, for multifamily, and that's due to inflation, the price of housing, and so forth. But based on the recommendations and feedback we received from council and maybe the commission and staff, we thought that the single family zoning for this area was appropriate. Again, as James mentioned, the site's on near the corner of Bakel and Meyer Road. Again, been here a long time. There's always a question of how do you pronounce? Is it Bakel or Bokel? I've heard both for many years. Again, that site's about 157 acres. We would leave the remaining 33 acres as industrial zoning. And a reminder, you're a seasoned commission. Rathdrum has 2 industrial zoning districts. One is industrial, which is what this site is zoned today, this entire site, which allows a mix of industrial uses and some commercial uses. And I think the city has a heavy industrial zone that allows a little more intrusive land uses. And there's a lot of that heavy industrial zoning in the southwest portion of the city. In regards to that remaining 33 acres, we do plan to proceed with some light industrial development of that. We'll hope to file a preliminary plat for that area and create some good jobs and tax base for the community in the years to come. Next slide, James. Sir. A little bit about Hayden Homes and the Aristad family. Again, Hayden Homes was founded in 1989, so they've been around a long time. They're a Northwest home builder, privately owned. They develop around the region. They have home offices. They have offices right here in our community. They're building homes in your community. They've been doing that for a while. Post Falls and Hayden as well. It's kind of a mouthful, but their goal is to provide a high quality home for the lowest possible cost to a price conscientious, value driven home buyers. Again, they're a single family home builder. A little bit about the Aristad family. I've had the opportunity to know them for over 30 years. Ragnar, or Don Aristad, he came here from Norway. At 14 years old, landed in Montana, then to Idaho, and now that family splits their time between Idaho and California, winters in California. They own a fair amount of land in and around the city. They were really keen on Rathdrum. And they've been proud to partner with the city over the years. They have donated land for right-of-way improvements, new wells, new lift stations. They worked on the North Idaho College, the Parker Center. They've been good partners with the city. And I'm very proud to represent the Aristad family in this proposal. Next slide. That's the site. Today it's called the Aristad property, bounded by red there. Today it's a field. It's pretty much level. It's kind of got a little bit of a rolling topography. The north side is about 20 to 30 feet higher than the south side, so it kind of rolls off to Bakel Road, which actually makes for good land use planning between the industrial areas that will remain and the residential areas on the south end of the site. kind of looking around the area. To the north is the Avista facility that's been there 25 years. To the east is agricultural lands. To the south is in the city limits, zone R3, I believe, a fairly high density development. And to the southwest, again, more urban residential development. And to the west, kind of those light industrial areas. And I recall those areas being developed by George Thayer many years ago and create some good jobs. So it's adjacent to the Brookshire neighborhoods to the south and southwest. And this was really an extension. I kind of want to also point out the adjacency of, there's a city park just to the south, a beautiful city park. It's a future school site farther to the south. That's an elementary site. And there's a future high school site that's adjacent to K-Tech. So there's schools and parks within the immediate area. And not to forget, there's a brand new roundabout, the Coino Bagel and Meyer. I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. Next slide, please. That's your current zoning map. Again, I think this property was annexed to the city 25 years ago. I go back. And I remember that annexation, vaguely. And it was a little bit different time. The Vista facility had been built. This was kind of that east edge of town. The city had not extended to the south or to the southwest a lot. And this seemed like an appropriate area for kind of industrial development, particularly with a Vista out there. So again, the site's in industrial, is it R2, R3 to the south?
It's R3, and there is a PUD on the eastern portion of it.
Yeah, that's R3.
Lots, but
Excuse me. Again, that's kind of your zoning map, the industrial, the ag in the county to the east, the R3 to the south, and industrial to the west. Kind of next slide there. That's our proposal. The retained 33 acres of industrial zoning along Bagel Road. Again, the goal is to develop that through a preliminary subdivision to a kind of a light industrial business park and retain it. We plan to implement a landscape buffer across the south end of that site through a subdivision process. And then our goal is to rezone this to MR zone, that implements your underlying comprehensive plan designation of low density residential, about 124 acres. So that's kind of overview. I'll kind of drop into that next slide if you would. So what is that MR zone? It is not a multifamily zone. This is a single family zoning designation that proposes it requires a variety of single family zoning districts kind of within it. So there's R1s, R2s, and R3s that are required to be implemented in that zone. So again, at least a third of the site has to be R3, a third of the site R2, and up to a third R1. And that's
Brad, can I hop in here?
Go.
It doesn't, the MR zone is the zone itself. It doesn't require 1/3 R3. It requires 1/3 of the lots to be equivalent to the size of lots in the R3 zone. So it's only one zoning designation, but the lots equivalency are R1, R2, and R3.
So you're saying that it does not allow for apartments or duplexes or
triplexes,
anything of like that?
all single family,
All single
only
family
single
homes.
family in the zoning district.
Thank you, James.
Sorry.
Appreciate it.
Too far.
There you go. This is your comprehensive plan map, your future land, comprehensive plan, future land use map. And in a reminder, several of you planning commission members may have been here, but a couple of years ago, the city went through an update to their comprehensive plan. They hired a consultant, that probably was not cheap. They developed committees and subcommittees. They did a lot of analysis of different things. They developed a plan, had public meetings, and developed one component of that as a future land use map. And as part of that, they designated the site as residential. times have changed. So through that planning process, the community determined that this is a more appropriate land use and development pattern in this area of the city was residential, not industrial. And again, times have changed. The city had annexed those areas to the southwest I kind of mentioned. And if you think about, you go to the southwest, closer to the highway, the rail lines, the KV power lines, the natural gas lines, it made more sense to kind of create some industrial areas in that area of Rathdrum, based on those supporting infrastructure. And the redesignated this area from the prior industrial to residential. So the pattern had changed, and James can speak to that as well. He's just city planner and so forth. So again, it's a reminder, the zoning we're seeking implements the underlying comprehensive plan that the community spent a lot of time, money, and effort and supported. So this is just an implementing zone of that comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. This kind of touches, trying not to read the slides verbatim, I've been everybody asleep. But again, the second bullet is probably the most important, is the purpose of that MR zone is to provide a mixed density residential district, single family, a range of lot sizes within developments, a range of lot sizes and opportunities for all parts. Because there's some people that want a small lot, a small home, some people want medium, some people want a larger, all single family. That's the MR zone. Next slide. As part of the zone change process, there's 3 criteria that we have to address, and ultimately the commission and the council has to address as part of your decision. So we've looked at that criteria, we've addressed it in application documents that's in file, and I'm going to kind of walk through that really briefly today. I'll try to be brief as I can. There's just 3, so I'll be short. That first one is, in areas where traffic would not have a detrimental effect on the carrying capacity of the collector and arterial streets. So from right, Bakel is an arterial, Myers a collector. So as part of a future subdivision process, the city engineer was clearly required, mandated a traffic study. So that's an analysis of a proposed development, the impact of that development to the adjacent streets, the arterials, the collectors, the roundabouts, the signals, and if there's any additional improvements needed to accommodate, support that development. In this case, we've got a brand new double lane roundabout at the major intersection. And that roundabout actually, and James can speak to this too, was actually oversized, overbuilt. Today, a single lane roundabout would probably be sufficient. But that double lane roundabout was constructed for a long lifespan to accommodate growth in this area. And then as part of the development process, the adjacent streets, Bakel and Meyer, they would have to be improved to accommodate any growth. So they would go from today's 2-lane sections to 3 and 5-lane sections to accommodate that growth. And that's part of the process. So we believe that this application, this site, and through the development process, we can clearly meet criteria number 1. Number 2 is where municipal and sewer facilities are provided. Quick overview, there's water and sewer to the site, right to the site. There's a new city well adjacent to the site just across Meyer. It's called the Thayer Well. The site actually has a 10-inch sewer main that runs all across Bakel Road. Excuse me, it's a 10, yeah. That the city engineer is saying, hey, that 10-inch line is going to have to be upgraded to 12, which we'll do. And then we'll extend 8-inch sewer into the site like other subdivisions and so forth. There's capacity. We don't anticipate the need for any major lift station improvements, pumps and so forth. The city engineer wants to do us to do a little bit of analysis to make sure that when we develop the site that we accommodate the adjacent uses, the adjacent properties next door. That means the pipes have to be sized right, and they have to be low enough in the ground so you can gravity feed everything. So we're pretty confident that we meet the sewer and water requirement. Next slide, please. And bear with me. In any location where R1, R2, and R3 zoning districts are appropriate. So again, looking at the site, again, a reminder, it's relatively level, mildly sloping. It's got sewer and water to it. It's got a brand new roundabout to it. Adjacent roads will be reconstructed to current city standards. We believe we're compatible with the adjacent land use. We're creating that that industrial buffer to the north, ag to the east. There's an R3 zoning to the south, and this is really an extension of that suburban developed area. And then there's a light industrial area, industrial area to the west, and that's across the street. And with some good buffering, it'll fit very nicely in there. So we believe, we're very confident, it's a very compatible land use. And as an example, that's you can just look at the development pattern to the south and the southwest. Next slide. Housing availability, always a question. We've had some, like probably every western city, we've had a lot of growth, and I've lived here a long time. I've seen changes. Housing prices are high. There's affordability issues and challenges. There's no doubt due to inflation, COVID, lots of factors, I suppose. A couple of years ago, the communities and economic development corporations and Avista, they had a study done. It's called the Housing Availability and Affordability Study, and I'm sure James has a link to it. That study's kind of floating around, but there's some key takeaways to that study, and there was an update done to it just last year. We do have a housing issue. There's a shortage of housing, and it's costly, and that's a supply and demand issue, and that's kind of push younger generations into the apartments. So by having an adequate supply of single-family housing, we can balance that out. But it's created challenges for our employers to attract good people, existing employers. Where we attract new businesses to community, create jobs and tax base, because they can't find housing. There's long-term residents have been priced out of our community because of those challenges. So is there a need for additional housing? I would argue yes, there is, and it's based on a study by the University of Idaho. We believe that this proposal to rezone and part of future development addresses that to some degree through just pure supply and demand. Next slide, please. Timeliness. Again, I've talked about a shortage of housing. It's something to think about is, should the city continue to grow? And we've got new people moving to our community and who have moved to our community. But we've also got existing people who've been here a long time, and they've got kids and grandchildren. That's called organic growth. That means that we're growing as a community. And we have an obligation to provide housing opportunities for our kids and our grandchildren and our friends and our coworkers. This is part of that mix of opportunities. Next slide. I've kind of touched on a lot of this. Transportation we can address, water, existing water to the site, the wells, the sewer to the site. Stormwater we would address through the development process with roadside swales, community swales. Next slide. Schools. Realistically, education or a school analysis is not part of the zone change criteria. It isn't, because it's a separate taxing district, separate entity. But with that said, we did reach out to the school district. We submitted this request to the school district. We met with the school district. We understand they've got some challenges going on, like a lot of school districts in the state do. We know that their levy failed in the fall, but we also know that they're revisiting that levy in the spring. They're looking at changing some programs there, possibly 4-day work weeks, for staff, which Post Falls has gone to. Maybe redistricting their elementary, middle, and high schools a little bit. It's kind of reshuffling a little bit. So we understand that they're going through some challenges. They're working on those challenges to address them. Also, we've also offered what we call self-imposed impact fee. So we would propose to pay the school district a per home impact fee that they could use to address staffing challenges or even purchase a new school site if needed. So we're in this together. We want to be a good partner with the school districts and the community because there's ebbs and flows. You know, our teachers need housing, our nurses need housing, they have kids, so it all kind of works together. You know, and it's a reminder that the zone change is just the first step in the development process. So that's going to take a while. So you go through the zone change, then we know what zoning we're working with. We develop preliminary subdivision plans. We do traffic studies and sewer studies on those plans, and then move forward with phase development over a long-term period of time. So there's ebbs and flows of the development process. There would not be homes built immediately on this site. You know, it takes time and resources and years. But approval of the zone change really just allows us to kind of know what we're working with. And a reminder, it implements your underlying comprehensive plan for the site. Next slide, please. Again, there's some zone change and comprehensive plan criteria that we've addressed in the application. We've submitted a very detailed application. James has addressed in the staff report. I'm not going to go through every one of them. I'd probably put everybody to sleep. But
Me too.
but if you could click through a couple of those slides, that'd be great. We do believe we meet the criteria for approval. There's a lot of yeses in there because the zoning implements your underlying comprehensive plan. In order to develop the site, we've got to go through kind of a litany of processes that take some time. And it's a reminder, the site today is in the city. It's not an annexation. It's zoned industrial today. Emily could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but an industrial developer could come in and pull a building permit on the site and develop industrial development on the site, which is it's not what the community wanted when they adopted their comprehensive plan. They envisioned residential development on the site. So they could pull a permit, you know, and we think a better use of the property is a single family. With that, again, we appreciate your time for being here, volunteering your time, staff's help on the application and so forth would be great, and respectfully request approval. With that, I'd stand for questions.
How long do you foresee? I know how long the process takes to get final approval before you guys could break ground, but I don't think anybody else really does. How long from let's say today till you got final approval of all the phases you're going to break this out into, do you foresee taking to fully develop that piece of property?
To fully develop it,
Yep.
completely.
Done.
Like pull building permits, is what you're asking?
Or completely built
Or
out.
completely built out.
Completely built
Have
out.
all the homes done.
Have all the homes done, all the commercial on there, all done. How many years?
What do you think, Eric?
4 to 6, depending on market conditions.
Yeah, 4 to 6 years depending on market.
Okay.
So there's ebbs and flows in the economy. We've all seen that. There's always some labor challenges, material challenges. So it's
What's the total number of homes?
That was my
That's
question.
not part of this
It's-
discussion
no,
tonight.
it's-
We're not breaking this into lots yet. That'll be, if they go to the plat process, we'll talk
Okay.
about how many lots will go on the
Right, the
whole.
preliminary plat does come back here for another
Yeah.
public hearing at the
Yeah,
time of submission.
absolutely. So you'll get another review of it definitely.
It's hard to project how many lots. They can give you an estimation, but it is possibly gonna be incorrect just because the public works and city engineer will require roads and different things based on the studies that they're gonna have to conduct. They're gonna have to put in different types of roads and other things that will take away from how many lots they're gonna have anyways. So it wouldn't be accurate until they've done those studies and prepared a full plat to present to you guys.
But knowing that it's only single-family homes gives you an idea that it's,
You can guesstimate it
yeah.
based on the acreage. Yeah.
Well, sort of. You could estimate there's X amount of area that will be subdivided. You can estimate that approximately a quarter of that will
Right.
be removed for public infrastructure, roads, swales, sidewalks, et cetera. And then based on, you know, what types of lots or the ratio that they fit in the required ratio, I mean, there's a vast difference. So, I mean, we could guess, but it would be just that.
And again, hopefully you'll approve the zoning. We'll be back before you with the preliminary subdivision. That'll define all that. Yeah, and a phasing plan and all kinds of good stuff.
What road are you planning on dumping main part of your traffic into? Is it, you're not gonna go through the industrial section, so it'll be all to Meyer then?
Yeah,
Correct.
We'd actually would send a little bit of traffic through the industrial zones to Bakel.
So you're gonna put a road, punch a road into Bakel?
Yeah, and that's, the city adopted a transportation master plan, you know, which is good planning. You know, that calls for extension, I think it's called, Hiawatha, is the center one?
Railroad.
Yeah, railroad, Hiawatha, and so forth. So there's the east-west roads that'll extend, you know, east-west, north-south. But a fair amount of traffic will go to Meyer and Bakel, and to the south as well. Okay, and you always want to kind of distribute that traffic to the best of your ability, spread it out. And we actually do a traffic study. You kind of look at those impacts. You look, here's the project. You look at the impacts.
I'm aware.
Where's the most appropriate place? The city engineer, Kevin, will evaluate that study. They may have even another party look at it. And then we'll come back and take another look. So there's kind of ebbs and flows in that process. You know, and we'll take a hard look at the intersection improvements and traffic counts and crash data and all kinds of good stuff.
My concern is they just put the roundabout in to get rid of the intersection, casualties and wrecks right there, and now you're gonna put one just short on either side of that? So,
Oh, an intersection, I see.
Yeah.
You know, there could, again, that traffic study will determine those intersection improvements and the level of service that needs to be there.
Any more questions?
Yeah. And, I'll be available for rebuttal. You know, I'm sure the public will have good questions, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. All right, so staff will present their report.
Thank you, Brad. My presentation is much shorter.
Hey.
Oh, pitter patter.
Right? This slide does represent the property, and again, it shows the 124 approximate acres versus the 33 that are going to be retained as industrial. This property was annexed and incorporated in the city of Rathdrum by ordinance 325 all the way back in 1991. It was zoned industrial at that time and has been sitting there undeveloped forever. I was in my freshman year of high school when this was annexed into the city, which is pretty fancy. It is designated as low-density residential on the future land use map, which is a component of the comprehensive plan. Basically, what that means is through the comprehensive plan update process that took place between 2019 and 2020 and adopted in 21, the city determined that this property was suitable for residential development. The property owner or interest in developing the property as industrial never happened. It's still empty. And that is definitely not the highest and best use of the property as entitled to the property owner. What is the MR Mixed Residential Zoning District? Brad, you mentioned this. The MR residential district, the purpose of that district is to provide for mixed density residential environments in order to allow a broad range of lot sizes within developments in order to encourage greater diversity of housing, lot sizes, and economic diversity. This lot or zoning designation was created in 2022 when we redid all of the zoning title in the Rathdrum City Code. This zone allows only single-family residences. It does not allow multi-dwelling units of any kind. No duplexes, triplexes, no apartment buildings, nothing. But it does, and this is what makes the MR zone different from our other single-use residential zoning districts in the city, is that it actually requires a mix of lot sizes to be provided by the subdivision. Where in an R1 zone, for example, the minimum lot size is 10,000 square foot. You can make every single zone in the subdivision 10,000 square foot. The MR requires that 1/3 of those lots be between 6,000 and 7,500, which is an equivalent to the R3 zoning district. It requires a minimum of 1/3 of the lots provided to be between 7,500 and 10,000 square feet, which is the equivalent of the R2 zoning district. And it allows up to 1/3 of the lots provided to be provided at greater than 10,000 square feet, which is equivalent to the R1 zoning district. What this does, in addition to requiring a mix of zones, is it gives the developer flexibility on what mix of those zones are required. You have to have 1/3 of the little ones and 1/3 of the medium ones, but you're not required to have any of the big ones at all. So you can change those ratios as they like, as long as they meet the minimums. The criteria for the establishment of the MR zoning district, it only has 3. 1, in areas where traffic would not have a detrimental effect on the carrying capacity of collector and arterial streets. 2, in locations where municipal water and sewer are provided. And 3, in any location where R1, R2, or R3 zoning districts are appropriate. Now, the city engineer has indicated that the roundabout at Bagelmeyer is currently operating at a level of service A, which, if you think about the level of service as grades in elementary school, A is the highest you can get. The adopted standard by the Master Transportation Plan for the city of Rathdrum requires a minimum of D. That intersection is the fastest, most furious, and best operating intersection in the city of Rathdrum at this time. The addition of this development is not expected to drop it from A to D. No detrimental effect on those streets is expected by the city engineer. Now, water and sewer are available. There are services in Bakel, in Meyer, and within the subdivision of North Ranch, Corbin Crossing to the south. So it's got services provided on all 3 sides. And the property is designated as low-density residential by the adopted future land use map, where R1 zoning is an enabling district of it. And that means that this property has been identified as suitable for residential use, specifically this kind, at that location. So those are the 3 criteria for the MR zone, and little green stars saying that staff, our analysis, and our reports agree with the applicant in that it meets all of the requirements for rezoned to the MR zone.
Are you done?
I am. You have my report, my analysis, and all my stuff on the website. It's been available to you for a while now. I have nothing further. I will stand for questions.
I have a question.
Okay.
With the current industrial zone, its current zoning, what could the property owner put on there?
Just about anything. Lumber mills. I'd have to, again, look up the land use map and read it if you'd like. You can.
If you could,
About the
I
land
think
use
it's
map.
an important component of this, because sometimes when you say no to door A, you don't know what's behind door B, and I think it might be kind of good for everybody here to know what's behind door A and door B.
Okay. So allowed uses there, outdoor vending, farmers markets, retail, postal,
all of these.
all dealerships, boat, marine, shopping centers. Our industrial zone is more of a heavy commercial with light industrial uses than a pure industrial zone. So dealerships, home improvement, hardware centers, lawn and garden, department store, warehouses, lumber, building material stores, superstores, discount stores, grocery, supermarket, convenience with food, specialty, automotive repair, automatic car washes, self-service car washes, marine and automobile service centers, quick lubes, banking, rental agencies, heavy tractor, truck, and trailer dealerships, recreation or consumer goods, commercial or
That one's not permitted.
building, developing, general contracting services, office buildings, veterinary, full-service restaurants, drive-ins, fast food, bar, tavern, lounge, kennels and dog servicing, warehouse and distribution centers, campgrounds, RV parks are all available in that zone, as is with no change.
Can they put in, what is the right word, you know, like, trailer parks and stuff like that?
With a
RV
PUD.
parks with a PUD, yes,
Mhm.
are
Are
allowed there.
permitted.
So,
All right. Any other questions? All right, we will now have public testimony. We will first, starting with those in favor. I don't see any papers here for those in favor, but is there somebody in the in the audience that wants to testify in favor of this? Okay, seeing none, is there anybody that is neutral that would like to testify? All right, thanks.
I don't know if I'm neutral or not because
It's okay.
I don't know.
We'll
I
find
learned
out.
a lot. I need to have that because
yeah,
those are all
yeah.
my notes.
Okay, no worries. Just state your name and your address.
My name's Michael Simpson. I live at 13509 Axel Court, and I'm within the 300-foot range. I live almost on the corner of Hiawatha and Ridge. Was it Ridge Creek? Yeah.
Axel and Quail.
Quail Creek. Yeah. You say the water is coming. They're going to tap into our water. Is that correct?
But at this time, that's not determined. This is just a
I thought
free zone.
that's
There's
what you
water
said.
service in Bakel, there's sewer service in Meyer, and there's water and sewer in that subdivision. So it's available. At this time, it's not determined. They'll probably get water off of the 10-inch upgraded to 12 in Bakel and sewer out into Meyer.
Yeah. Because right now, at certain times of the morning or certain times of the evening or whatever, you can see the water pressure drop when everybody's taking showers or everybody's watering during the summer. And if this subdivision taps into our water, it's not going to get better. So that's one of my concerns. Who owns the property right now? The city or Hayden?
Neither.
Who does?
You
Paxton?
mentioned their name?
The Aerostat family.
The Erstad family.
So if this zoning change doesn't go through, what happens?
They could put potentially whatever, one of the things James listed off, and I'm sure there's more. So it could be commercial buildings.
So it stays commercial?
Yes, and it could be.
Industrial.
Industrial,
yes.
yeah.
Okay. Are there gonna be any common areas?
That's
We
not
don't
part
know
of
any of this. This is all unseen.
Okay, so are we gonna get to see a master plan for
Yes,
the
you'll get to
development
see, it'll go through
before
a
the
multiple
change?
process before anything changes.
No.
And there will be
Not
hearings
before
for
the
that as
change.
well.
I understand, yeah.
No, they'd
So-
have to put in a rezone. Once, if the rezone passes, then they have to put in a plan
Right.
after, but it has to go through us for recommendation, then the city council, and then back once it gets platted and planned.
So.
And then we make another recommendation, and then it goes back to city council.
So
'Cause all we
basically,
can do is recommend.
so what we're saying is that yes, the zoning could change without knowing whether there's gonna be a park, whether there's gonna be any common grounds for those people in that development, or are they all gonna head down our way? Being as you're talking about having an egress or whatever, down Hiawatha, people that wanna go to Hayden, they're not gonna go over to Meyer if they can go down Hiawatha. They're just gonna go down Hiawatha until they hit Lancaster or whatever, and over to Hayden. So that's gonna become a main thoroughfare, in my opinion, especially if the property on the other side of Hiawatha develops, which they only irrigate, they don't even irrigate. That property just gets one cut and that's it, they turn to soil. So it's prime, as far as I'm concerned, for development.
I think, James, isn't the property to the right,
To the
or
east.
to the east, isn't that county?
It is in the county, and it's also owned by the same property owner.
Yeah. In county, they
So
have
it will
a-
be developed.
Well, not necessarily, because in our commissioners in county, they're not like high growth, high density commissioners right now.
It could be annexed overnight.
Right, but yeah, but
So
anyways,
the minimum lot size in the county is 5 acres, so they can't subdivide any smaller
Right.
than that while it's in the county. They have to be annexed in.
If an annexation request came in, it also requires 2 public hearings, one before the commission and one before the council.
yeah.
Is anything gonna be done about the intersection at Meyer and Lancaster, when all of a sudden we've got
Sir,
however many families gonna be? No?
I so appreciate
I know
your
you can't
comments,
answer
but
me,
it's
I'm
3
just-
minutes, and so we have to, but I really appreciate your concerns. If you would like to provide a written comment, can he provide that to the city
Wasn't-
council?
There a roundabout proposed, supposed to go in there sometime next year.
That's gonna be a lot of traffic for a roundabout.
Thank
I
you.
also, in closing, I came from a city that experienced the same thing that this one's experiencing. It was 30,000 people, and it was rural, it was farm, it was rodeo, it was all this and that. And they started letting the development go and go and go. You know what happened? My farm went dry. The water tables just steadily dropped and dropped and dropped until I couldn't pull any water without going down almost 600 feet. And I was at 200 to start with.
Thank you so much.
Just concerns.
Thank you so much. So we have, is it Leslie A. What's the last name?
Winslow,
Winslow?
yeah.
Okay, so Leslie A. Winslow, would you like to come speak?
Yeah, sure.
All right. And you are opposed to this, correct?
Oh, that's affirmative.
All right. So if you could state your name and your address, please.
Leslie Winslow, I live on Quail Ridge Street. And I think if you're going to do this, all of us people who live on Quail Ridge Street, of course, have a big concern. So for us, if you start at the bottom on Bocal and come up towards Quail Ridge, that would be much better than if you start at Quail Ridge and go down. I think all of us people on that street would not be very encouraged. But if you come from the bottom and come up, then it will be a much better situation for us. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Chuck Krings, is it?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chuck Rings, 5659 West Quail Ridge. Yeah, I'm gonna echo some of what Mike said, and James, good to see you too. Just for reference, what is the difference between low-density residential? What's the minimum lot size on that?
Currently, our R1 zoning district is our low-density residential. That's about 3 per acre.
Well, no, he's talking about in the comp plan, it's listed as low density residential, right?
R1.
And what are the zonings that can go
R1.
into?
It says the low-density residential designation, the comprehensive plan has enabling districts of the R1 and R1 hybrid. The MR is our first attempt at the R1 hybrid zone.
So, I got some questions on the mixed residential. Are you saying at least 1/3 of the lots have to be 6,000 to 7,500, but it could be more?
Yes, it could be.
And at least 1/3 have to be 7,500 to 10,000, but it could be more?
Yes,
But none have to be 10,000.
that is correct.
So it could be 50-50, could be 60-40, as long as 1/3 is somewhere in there.
That is correct.
All right,
That is the way
so
that code is written.
my concern has to do with the studies, and again, a lot of the stuff that Mr. Marshall addressed in his presentation. Upstream side of the sanitary sewer, fine, go to a 12-inch line, not a problem. Downstream side, what's the impact on the wastewater treatment plant? Who's gonna pay for that upgrade when it eventually comes to pass? We've got development going on both sides of Meyer, south of Lancaster today. You already can't get across that intersection in the morning and in the afternoon. Hopefully the same people that did the traffic study aren't the ones that did it for the developments along Hayden. You can't get across that road. God forbid you try and hit that at 9 o'clock. If it was all low density, best case, back of the napkin math, 125 acres, quarter-acre lot, that's 500 houses. That's 1,000 cars, 1,500 to 2,000 if you include teenagers, of 2.3 kids per couple. 1,050 extra kids in school. Who pays for the schools? Who pays for fire, EMS? We already got levies every year. Who's gonna pick that up? I'm not saying don't develop it. I'm not saying we shouldn't convert it, but mixed use, I don't like. Low density or high density, no. Low density residential, maybe, my opinion. I don't think Hutter, Beckel, and Meyer can handle 1,500 cars a day in that neighborhood effectively. That's all I got. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
So, and we've had this before on planning and zoning. Would you prefer to have industrial behind your house, like the things that he listed off, the things that they could put there, or would you prefer to have single-family homes?
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. I'm not gonna play the fear game.
Well, it's not the fear game; it's the reality. Because
It's
according
possible. They put
we
a lumber mill back there.
we have a
That's the
Fifth
risk.
Amendment that says that we can't take a person's property without just and fair compensation. So one of the principles in our Idaho government is that they should be able to make a profit from their property. Like they should be able to get the full use economically of their property. So it's either going to be industrial or it's going to be this single family residential. In your backyard, what would you prefer to be there? Because again, when you say no to door A, meaning if you say no to single family housing, you are essentially saying yes to door B, and is that something you would be happy with? Would you be okay with any of the things that they listed? Because that is what they can legally do on that property to get the full use of their property.
Potentially.
So that's what my question to you is, what would you want in your backyard? And it's an honest question because it helps us to plan and make
Low
decisions.
density residential.
Okay.
Actually, I'd like to see 5-acre minimum parcels like the county, but
Thank you.
Please repeat.
What did you say?
low density residential at the minimum, but I'd like to see 5-acre minimum parcels like the county has.
Yeah.
Keep that to a minimum back there, but hobby farms back there, let them raise chickens and horses and stuff.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. Awesome. So the next we have Randy and Lois Sales. Are both of you wanting to testify one at a time?
Well, we get more time if we do it separately, right?
Well, each of you gets 3 minutes. So,
You get 6 minutes.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so the math says we get 6 minutes, there's 2 of us.
No, just the 3.
I don't think we need 6 minutes, that's
Okay.
all right.
So state your name and address.
Okay, I'm
Please.
Randy, this is Lois, last name Sales, and we're on Quail Ridge Street, right next to.
We're in the very right-hand corner. So this is really
Yeah, the
impacting
northeast
us.
corner, yeah.
Yes.
So, some questions first. I keep hearing R3, and we looked at all the paperwork, and it looked to us like R3 included like duplexes and triplexes. Is that true or not?
Again, they are not asking for R3 zoning, they're asking for MR zoning, which requires 1/3 of the lots to be provided in equivalent sizes as the R3 zone. There is no R3 component in this public area.
So no
Yeah, so
apartments,
no
no
apartments, any of
condos,
that.
only single family housing.
One question, what about Title 15? Didn't they just change a bunch of the zoning laws? No?
No.
No?
We redid Title 15 and created this zone in September of '22. We made some minor modifications to it, and we're currently workshopping with City Council for minor modifications and
Cause
cleanup.
this says duplexes, 3-unit dwellings,
That's R3.
Is that the MR zone?
That's,
it's off your website.
I don't know what's in there.
that's R3.
So one
Yes,
document,
that's
one
not-
document we looked at, they said they'd like to have 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and no mention of R1203.
Yeah.
And then after that, it said, but
we really
specifically, what we really do want is this portion of R1, this portion of R2, and this portion of
It was
R3.
20, 40, 40, that's what I'm saying, but we really want this, and that's what they want.
In their narrative,
Yes.
what they're talking about is equivalent lot sizes.
Right.
40% equivalents to R3, not R3, equivalent lot sizes to the
Okay,
R3.
but they specifically mention R3.
Yeah, yes, they
So
did.
So that opens the door.
No, it does not.
This
That's
is a
great.
rezone to MR, that's it, that's what this rezone is for, not R3,
Okay.
just MR.
And the
Right.
comparison was
keeping
only
it-
lot sizes. It's only the size of the lot. That's
Gotcha.
it, not the statute of R3 at all.
So it's changed from low-density residential to mixed residential.
Yes.
So it's called a mixed residential zone.
It is now,
And it's
because
part of the low-density residential enabling districts in the comprehensive plan.
in the comprehensive plan on page 66, it says low density, but it's 3 to 4 units per acre. That's what your comprehensive plan says. It also says on 11B land use, that you want to keep the rural character and small town feel. It's in your plan. Also, one of the things we got, it was mentioning where we live on Quail Ridge, it says medium and high density residential. I wouldn't call us medium and high density. We are R1, at least 10,000 square feet. We're 14,000, so you've got third and half acre lots. But if you start putting all these, 6,000 square foot lots in there, that's just not gonna fly.
The North Rancher Corbin Crossing subdivision, the entire thing is zoned R3, which allows medium to high density residential units, including duplexes.
I'm just saying what's
and
there.
triplexes. I'm just saying that's
Well,
what.
and that
I'm
goes
just
all,
saying
that
what's
goes all
there.
the way to Lancaster, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so yeah.
Well,
they're-
that's down there at the end.
Those Corbin Crossing estates.
It's
Those
all
are-
R3, the
No.
entire subdivision.
Let's just let them give
Okay.
their testimony
Yeah.
to the commission, and if there's additional questions, then the commission can answer them or direct staff to answer them
I do
afterwards.
agree with Chuck, if you're gonna build this stuff, put the high stuff at the ends and at least give us a little grace at the bottom. Also, when we bought our house last year, I have a huge 2-gated fence. I'm gonna have to spend thousands to relocate that fence to the side over Hiawatha Gate. And also go through our housing, to
HOA.
have to pay over the swale that's there, so I'm gonna have problems there as it is.
And we don't know what it looks like or anything else.
I know, I'm
Well,
just
I
saying.
live on Majestic
I
Avenue,
heard that.
and I've been to your home because I walked that entire
Oh,
precinct
you
every
know, I remember
election.
you, yeah, you-
So I know
you
all
came
the
politicking.
streets.
Yeah.
I know exactly what it looks like. And so
Uh-huh.
again, your time is up, but my big question to you is the same question I asked to the previous gentleman. The way it is industrial right now, they can legally do certain things on there. And they want to get the maximum use of their property. They want to be able to earn what they want on their property. And they legally are allowed to do that because we have a Fifth Amendment that respects property rights.
Sure.
So if you had your choice, what would you want in your backyard? Because that helps us to make decisions.
Okay, we may not agree. You go.
One house per acre.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
I would give it two answers. One is the 5-acre lots that Chuck talked about.
That's not gonna ever
First
happen.
choice. Second choice is put something industrial there. We know it may not be what we like, but it means jobs. And jobs right now, I think, are more important to this community
And more houses.
than more houses. So that's,
Also, Meyer, you put those 1,000 cars on there, you're gonna have to tear down houses in our subdivision.
the widening.
And to widen it. You're not gonna do the ones on the right, over on the rich side. You're gonna take the poor houses on this side.
Thank you.
They're not gonna
Yeah.
like it.
You have a good
I'd like to remind you guys of what that used to be.
Uh-huh.
And it used to be fields, all fields that were farmed. And they were burned all the way up until they had an agreement that you couldn't burn anymore. So then guess what happened to the farmer? You couldn't farm anymore.
Uh-huh.
So just be diligent on what you're asking, because it doesn't just affect you guys, it affects somebody else even harder.
Okay.
Awesome.
I have
Thank
more
you.
questions. Thanks, though.
Alrighty, so next we have Hal Hansen. Alright, thank you.
been to my house too.
Yes, a few times.
My name is Hal Hansen. I live at 5687 West Quail Ridge Street. And I agree with an awful lot of what's being said tonight. Your question about what do we want behind us? They are still farming that piece of property right now. They're farming the property to the east, to the east, all the way around there. That's all owned by the same people. And they're doing it quite profitably. I haven't seen their balance sheets, but there's got to be some reason why they continue to do it. Bring in the equipment that they bring in, fly in with helicopters and survey the property. So I don't buy that as not a viable option. The one thing that really concerns me, and it's really addressed to these three people, when we're talking 153 acres, it seems to me that that's pretty close to Post Falls Tullamore development done by these gentlemen right here. They should have a pretty good idea how many houses end up in there, whether they're R3, R2, or R1s. And it's packed. I mean, I don't know if you've ever driven down the streets. You can reach from house to house in there. They're one on top of another. I appreciate what the Parks Department has done and the city of Rathdrum has done in having events there in Majestic Park. One of the main theories that they had at the last one this summer, the barbecue, was that they were hearing comments from the public, and they're promoting the idea that we're a rural community. Putting another 7,500 or 750 houses in this 150 acre development only raises the traffic. It only raises the number of kids that are going to need to be going to these schools. It just doesn't make sense. And on top of the car traffic, I mean, we're talking another 100 or 1,500 cars that will be in that 150 acre area. That's not even addressing the number of boats, motorhomes, and RVs. You know, your question of what would we rather have back behind us? Maybe we should have an RV park back there. That way there'd be spots for the park vehicles like this. Right now, they're being parked on the street. If you go all the way down to down to Meyer Road on Quail Ridge, they're parking RVs on the street. They're not up in Corbin Crossing Estates because they shrunk down the size of the streets. You can only park on one side of the road. So there's a lot of serious questions here that are being ignored. We built our house with Hayden Homes 5 years ago. And
what time is that?
Yep, I'm going to wind it up right now because I want to make a comment to Hayden Homes. I love my house. It came down to, we had 5 months invested in it, and I actually had to go to battle with Mike Moore and Mike Newell, the head honchos at Hayden Homes in this area. I don't know if they're still the top honchos, but they told me if I didn't want that house to hit the road jack, I threatened them with a lawsuit, and I was serious about it, and they finally rolled over and did it. So I don't believe anything that's being said. I believe that they'll go in and strip that land of all the topsoil like they always do and sell it to somebody else, and then they leave the gravel with everybody else.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So next we have Teresa Pierce. Oh,
I said I wasn't gonna speak, but I do have one question. So it's Teresa Pierce, and I'm on 13493 Axel Court. Light industrial, what's that? If they change that 33 acres, what can be on that?
I believe
That same list that I read,
The
they're not
same-
changing that. That's what's allowed there already. They're maintaining
Okay,
that.
okay. Who wants to live with that behind them?
but they can legally put that on there now.
Right, I understand that, but I'm saying you're developing that much more. Those homeowners aren't gonna want that behind them either, or next to them. So that, I mean, that's something that, I wrote what I wanted to say on my paper. I wanted to know about the light industrial. I just think the impact on our schools, which obviously the levy didn't pass. The sewer and the water, everybody's talking about the aquifer. I haven't heard a thing. We all don't want hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes. Look at Rathdrum. So, that's all.
Thank you so much. All right. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to testify that has not testified yet? Okay, seeing none, would the applicant like to rebut anything?
Pretty late. I'll try to be brief, but I'm going to try to address some of the public's comments. You know, it's a public process, it's a public hearing, and it's always interesting and rewarding, and it's some good comments that we've heard. And work through those really quick. If I want to address all of them.
And if you can maybe speak louder so that they can
Yeah.
hear you, because there's not a microphone.
There's no
Yeah, I'll try to speak louder. Sidebar, again, I've known the Aristad family for over 30 years. I think they've owned the property for 20 years. To my knowledge, the property's never been marketed, but it's as industrial property. That's why it remains a farm field today. It's a point in their family life that it is now being, they partnered with Hayden Homes. So, you know, there's a reason why today it's agricultural property, but, you know, we're trying to move forward with the residential development, zone change. But if that were to devolve, it could be developed industrial under the underlying industrial zoning. Food for thought. I'm kind of worked through it. There was a comment about water pressure and water. You know, a reminder, we're over the Rathdrum Prairie Aquifer. The city has multiple municipal wells spread across the city. There's a brand new well called the Thayer Well just across the street. There's a water tank on the hill, Rathdrum Mountain. Another water tank just close to this. We will, as part of the subdivision process, you'll extend water lines through the development, and you'll loop the water system, so you're making this connection, and by looping the water system you actually increase the water pressure in that area. And there's testing that's done, so you go through and you test the hydrants, you test the pressure, you do a water analysis, you develop the project, you test hydrants again before the next phase, to make sure that there's adequate pressure and particularly fire flow in those areas at the hydrants. So, and you have a very capable city engineer who will review all of that and staff. I'm going to address that comment. There's a question about sewer. Again, there's kind of two things going on when you look at sewer. One's collection and one is treatment. So collection is the sewer mains that are in the street, sometimes lift stations that pump it up and down. Again, a reminder, this site has sewer to it and on it. So that addresses kind of the collection question. The other question is treatment. And today, Rathdrum doesn't have a sewage treatment facility. You actually pump all your wastewater to Post Falls that treats it. Post Falls is very progressive through agreements with Rathdrum, and they've gone through a very major expansion of the Post Falls wastewater treatment plant that addresses capacity and future demands both in Post Falls and Rathdrum. So capacity is addressed. Again, you've got some very talented people in Post Falls and in Rathdrum looking at the growth of the city, particularly water and sewer. We've heard a lot of, and there always is a lot of talk about density and lot sizes. And again, a reminder, you know, we're asking for the MR zone. Ideally, it's approved. We would design a subdivision plat that would come back before commission, the council, and this group of fine folks, opportunity for public comment and a solid review of that, and approval, maybe denial. But there will be opportunities to take a look at that again. And there'll be the studies and analysis. Today you are seeing smaller lot sizes than we saw in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and development patterns. And it's driven by a couple factors. One is we've seen significant inflation. We see it at the grocery store when we purchase a car or whatever, clothes, whatever it is. Christmas gifts this year, oh my gosh. But what that means in kind of the development world or home building world is raw land is more expensive. The cost of pipe, sewer and water pipe is way more expensive. Asphalt's more expensive. And that translates into lot development costs. So by making the lot just a little smaller, it allows a little affordable housing product. And there's also market demands. You know, there was a time when, and there's still some, that people want a little bigger lot. And I get that and respect that. But we're finding that we have a lot of retirees, empty nesters that are moving here. They don't want a big yard. They want a small, efficient yard that's easy to maintain. We're also finding even young families, you know, they want to be portable and movable, and sometimes they have two jobs, and they're requesting smaller lots too, believe it or not. So it's market driven and inflationary and cost driven. And through this zoning district, there will be a variety. It's mandated by your code. There's going to be a price point for everybody in there. All single family, no apartments, no condos, no townhomes, just all single family. In summary, we've submitted a very detailed application that clearly meets your criteria. Staff has done an analysis of that, both the zone change and the comprehensive plan. They've given it the green stars, which are in front of you. So I believe they're recommending approval. This zoning implements your comprehensive plan land use designation that your community spent a lot of time and effort on. They envision residential development in this area of town. With all that in mind, I respectfully request approval of the zone change, or a recommendation of approval to the council. Thank you.
Do any of you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I don't.
Okay. The hearing is now closed. Okay, so discussion. Do any of you have anything I have a few things I want to discuss, but I'm okay with all of you going first.
To me, they've clearly met all the criteria, and it's just a zone changed. There's nothing. I haven't seen anything.
I can't hear you guys.
I haven't seen anything that states we can recommend council not approving it. They've met all the criteria that's required by the city. And so.
Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share?
In the comprehensive
Discuss.
plan, it's stated as to be R1, not mixed use.
It's okay.
That's not quite true, Larry.
It's an LDR.
Low density.
Says R1 is an enabling district. What does the code say? Any location where R1, R2, or R3 zoning districts are appropriate.
No,
Is an MR.
Any other discussion?
I don't think so.
Okay, I have a few points to make because I took some time to research. And so I do have some concerns. Obviously, we've had plenty of public testimony that is in opposition to it, and we understand those reasons. The Lakeland School District, in their December 9th letter that they sent to the city, they stated they cannot support the rezoning request, that they're overburdened, and that's actually unique because we haven't had any letters in the past few years stating that they're opposed to it. So when they say they're opposed to it, I'm looking at they're being serious. The Lakeland School District levy did not pass this past November. So what that residents living within the Lakeland School District said no. They didn't want to give the money. Idaho Code Title 67-6502 states that the purpose of local land use planning in Section L is to allow local school districts to participate in the community planning and development process so as to address public school needs and impacts on an ongoing basis. And then Idaho Code 67-6513 states that each such ordinance may provide for mitigation of the effects of political subdivisions of the state, including school districts, to deliver services without compromising quality of service delivery to current residents or imposing substantial additional costs upon current residents to accommodate the proposed subdivision. Now, in the Rathdrum Comprehensive Plan 2E, Public Services Objective A says to coordinate with service providers and public safety entities. Now, I'm thinking they're probably talking about police, fire, but at the same time, the public schools are providing a public service and we pay for it. And so in that it said to assure necessary and appropriate urban services are provided to accommodate projected types and densities of growth and development. In Rathdrum Comprehensive Plan 2H, it addresses school facilities. Goal 1, consider the priorities and concerns of Lakeland School District and other schools in future community development decisions. Now, I also researched on the Attorney General's website. It's the Attorney General's Idaho Regulatory Takings Act Guidelines Manual. And this is very important because we do have a Fifth Amendment that says that government can't take your property without just and fair compensation. So they have actually a criteria that the cities have to follow to make sure that we're not unjustly taking somebody's property. And so it did say, it cited a court case, Ada County versus Henry, and this is on page A13. Says the Idaho Supreme Court held that property owners had no takings claim where the owners were aware of zoning restrictions before they purchased the property, even though the zoning ordinance reduced their property's value. But in that case, you also have to look into, are they able to get the full use of their property? Like the full use, like if they want to put industrial on it, are they able to get the compensation for using it that way? If they put residential, are they able to get the money that they want from selling homes and so forth? So in this case, the property owner knew what zone they had when they purchased the property, and the property owner is not being deprived of the economic viable use of the property. But the question is that the property owner is saying, well, they think the best out of all the years that they've owned this property, that they have not developed it, from what I understand from testimony, they're saying the most viable use of this property, where they'd get the most value from it, would be to build single-family homes, in the opinion of the property owner. But at the same time, they could get use by doing industrial as well, meaning they're not being deprived of the use of their property to develop industrial, and they knew that when they bought the property and they had that zoning. So in that case, I just wanted to put that on the table to be part of the discussion so that we can make the best decision possible, taking all of the public's testimony into consideration, the property owner into consideration, and to just make a wise decision.
When was the letter from Lakeland written? I haven't seen one.
It was in the packet. Like it was on the website. Well, it wasn't in the packet. In the packet, it says if you want to see all the things for the public hearing, you go to that, and then you can see the testimonies and letters.
We received that, and then as Brad said in his presentation, then they went to the school district and worked with them to impose an impact fee on themselves for development. After we received that letter. So as soon as we received that letter, they went and approached the school district. They made a deal with them to give them money. And so the school district has indicated to them that they are on board. They just never issued a new letter to us to post.
Is that over and above the impact fee they're already going to be paying?
That's not something that goes through the city at all.
Per house?
Well,
yes, it is.
Yes, because the state doesn't allow impact fees to be collected by the city.
For schools.
For schools. So any impact fee paid to the school district has to be voluntary on the behalf.
Basically just a donation to the school district for every house that they build, that they've decided to pay voluntarily.
And because these are single-family homes, each owner will be required to pay the taxes
Yes.
for any levy, any
Yes,
police department.
100% of their real property taxes.
They are real.
Yes.
Okay.
And there will be impact fees for EMS, impact fees for fire, impact fees for police, impact fees for circulation, which is streets, impact fees for parks, cap fees for the ability to be a part of the water and sewer system. So there are fees on top of fees on top of fees to get permits, to pay for the infrastructure needed to support more homes.
And one of my concerns, because we've had some other things come through zoning, is again, if you do say no to door A, and it's not a fear, but it's saying legally, what could they put on there? And would the homeowners in that area be happy with that too? And what would that look like? And so I just feel like we have to take all those things into consideration.
I'd like to toss this right back in there.
Right.
As we all know, the comprehensive plan is a guidance document.
Right.
It is not regulatory. In order to deny this rezone, you have to determine how it does not meet those three criteria on the wall.
One thing that they haven't discussed in that
I'm
number one.
I'm not
just
allowed to
gonna make a
permit you
quick
to
point.
speak. I
They've
can't.
talked about the traffic going
I-
down Borkle, but they haven't talked about the traffic going
I'm sorry.
if that new school goes in.
The hearing part is
I'm
over.
sorry.
I know. It's the part of the rules that we have to follow.
Well, he got up
So-
and spoke for another 15 minutes.
That's part of the hearing that he gets to rebut
No
what the
time limit was
audience
put
said.
on him, though.
So
You
I'm
don't get to
sorry.
rebut
That's
him.
part of the rules. So we'd have to change those rules. So is there anything else anybody would like to add to this discussion?
Right now, it's just hypothetical. It's just hypothetical. It's no different right now than what it is. They just want to rezone that gives them the option to change the use of that land, and they meet all the criteria. We have no power or authority other than to recommend approval based on applicant meeting all the criteria set forth by the city.
So you have a green star next to, in areas where traffic would not have detrimental effect on the carrying capacity of collector and arterial streets. How have you green starred that without a traffic study?
A traffic study will be required. Improvements will be required if they're needed based on that determination. And as I stated, the city engineer, based on the master transportation plan, we are operating the intersection of Bakel and Meyer, those two streets, at a service level of A, where our minimum standard that we will accept is D. There's
So the city engineer made this determination based on his expertise and the plans that he has in place for these roads and these intersections, and with the knowledge that once the traffic studies are done, when the subdivision is submitted, that traffic improvements would get made as needed.
I do disagree with the assessment that that's the only criteria that you can use for denial, because we have had court cases that said if they purchased with that particular zone, they knew what it was, and that you don't have the you don't have to change that zone though.
So what you're talking about, Nina, is a takings claim,
Mhm,
right?
mhm. Like
So
if
the
they wanted
only
to
issue
file
here
a
is not a
takings.
takings claim. That is only one of potential issues
Mhm.
that could come up as a legal issue. If you guys do not use this legal criteria in your decision, that opens the door for judicial review, which is a completely different legal claim in which they would sue us.
But
the
it's a
city.
recommendation. We're not
I
making
know,
a
but if the
decision.
council goes along with your recommendation, then they sue us for judicial review, and if they win, then we have to pay for their attorney's fees.
Mhm.
And that goes straight out to the citizens, as a tax, as an automatic fee that they have to pay.
Mhm.
So that's not, so takings is one issue, absolutely. Judicial review is a separate legal issue, and judicial review is linked to the fact that you have to use these objective criteria, which is also an Idaho code in Title 67, Chapter 65. You have to use clear and discrete objective criteria to come to decisions on land use decisions.
But my question is in Idaho code, I believe it, is it Idaho code 67-6535? Don't we use the comp plan and public testimony and hearing as part of making our decisions?
No, so what we can do, we can use Idaho code and the comp plan to help us create our code, and we have, but our code says that these are our criteria for this specific zoning designation when it is asked for. If you guys wanna change this criteria, we can do that. We can add more criteria to this list at a different day in a different public hearing, but today, this is the criteria that's been approved by city council, and that's what's before you. If you wanna add school district analysis, like other things to this, you can on a different day. But today, these are the criteria you have to work with.
So from what I understand, what you're saying is the comprehensive plan, none of that, no public testimony or anything matters in terms of the only thing that matters right now is if their application meets the city code.
Correct.
Kind of. You can recommend conditions you have to approve, but you can recommend conditions to the council based on public testimony. But you can't deny it if it meets the requirements, just because a bunch of people stood up and said we don't like it.
And there's also, as when they come back for plat, a lot of these concerns were related to the plat process. There's the opportunity when they come back for the plat approval, you could also put additional conditions on the plat, such as they have to donate a park, or they have to have a certain amount of open space or common area. Things like those can come back at platting stage, which I know was a mentioned concern as well. So there's no more opportunities for conditions in addition to right now.
So is it in our code that the only criteria we can use is what's in the code? You can't use testimony or comp plan or anything like, or land use planning map or anything like that?
That is correct.
So the only thing our ordinances, our codes say that we can utilize is what's in the code. So our planning and zoning codes.
Yes, which are these 3 criteria right here on the board.
All right, is there any more discussion?
No.
Is there a motion that somebody would like to make?
Make a recommendation that city council approve the zone change as requested to MR.
What did he say?
We didn't hear you.
I said I recommend that city council approves the zone change to MR.
Is
Do I
there
have
a
a
second?
second?
No.
I'll second it.
Okay, Ken,
No.
Nick,
Yes.
Nina,
No.
Cindy,
Yes.
Larry.
No.
Okay, motion does not pass. All right, we do now have the opportunity for visitors to.
Do you guys want to make another motion?
Oh, yeah, is there another motion that would like to be made? Doesn't look like it.
Your guys' job is to recommend something to council, so if you're not gonna approve it,
Okay,
then there needs to be a motion for the other way. And you need to base it on a legal criteria that you're using
Okay,
for the
I
legal
move
piece.
to deny this application because we do not have any traffic study showing the detriment, whether it's gonna have a detriment on the carrying capacity of the arterial services.
But schools too.
Well, sorry, we aren't doing public comment right now.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay,
Okay, Ken,
Aye.
Nick,
No.
okay,
aye.
okay, Cindy,
Aye.
okay,
Aye.
Larry.
Motion passes. All right. Now we have for visitors an opportunity to address concerns not part of a public hearing. A 4-minute time limit per speaker is allowed. No formal action may be taken, though the commission may place the topic on subsequent agenda for future discussion and consideration. Comments regarding performance by city employees are appropriate at this time and should be directed to the mayor. Repeated comments of the same or similar topic will be considered out of order and not allowed. Is there anybody that would like to offer public comment?
So I don't really have public comment, so to speak, but Q&A, can I ask a few questions?
So it can't be
No.
about that public hearing.
Yeah, it can't be about the hearing.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. In general, so I'm new to the area and I've never been involved in city politics or anything. I feel like my voice is muffled right now, I really do. And I appreciate the chance to be heard, but what I just heard just now is, really doesn't matter what I said, because even if you guys don't approve this, then there's still plenty of ways for them to get what they want to do.
You can go to city council meeting.
City council has.
They have the approval
authority.
and denial
Yeah.
Okay.
authority.
So that's really my question. How do I get more involved?
So we are just, we don't get paid. We get interviewed to be here.
Okay.
And then when we get picked, we're here. So this is all voluntary. We recommend approval or denial based on criteria set by city code. That's it.
Well, that makes sense.
And so city
You're bound
council
by that.
has the authority to do what they feel is right based on the information given to them and our recommendations.
Okay, so your relationship with them is recommendations you make to them?
That's it.
Okay.
That's
City council has more authority than you do.
absolutely.
Okay.
And who does the code?
What's that?
Who does the codes and changes the criteria?
So we do workshops at planning and zoning and at council to talk about it, and then we have a public hearing at planning and zoning, which we just had public hearing on some code updates in November. And then it goes to council, we do more workshops with council, and then we typically have a public hearing at council, for code updates, and then they are the ones who adopt those code updates. So same process, same public hearing process that, like this is.
Okay, anything else I can do besides getting engaged with the city council?
The meetings are the second and fourth Wednesdays,
For
Okay.
council.
and they also have a visitor section.
Okay,
And strongly suggest the council meetings.
okay, so that's really my first,
City website.
Yeah.
okay,
The city council meetings are, when you talk there, that's the place, in my opinion, to
Okay.
really hammer
City
home.
staff is here 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
okay. Are you guys paid?
Yes,
You're part of the city,
yes.
We're city staff.
your city staff. You guys are all volunteer, right?
Yes.
But even though you're paid, appreciate you being here at night, and appreciate you guys.
Okay, thank you.
I want something to say.
Okay. And please state your name and address,
Okay.
please.
Leslie Winslow, I'm I'm on
6145
6145.
Quail Ridge Street.
Yeah, over there. I think one thing that was mentioned here was that the thing about the school.
As long as the comment's not about the hearing, if it's just other things, but if it's directly related to the hearing, you're not supposed to.
Well, I think that's
comment.
related to the hearing because you got too many people here, and
Okay.
you got a school that can't handle it.
Well, we,
So I think that has to be
Right.
be consideration.
Okay. Is there anybody else? And please state your name and
It's
address.
Gretchen Krangs, 5659 Quail Ridge Street. I just have a really simple. I know it probably, to you guys, you're the ones that are hearing being spoken to, but nobody else can hear when somebody's talking this way. And if you guys could put the podium somewhere and rearrange the room so there's still access to get out, and that would be great. It's just a consideration.
I'm writing the mayor about it.
Okay, is there anybody else that would like to offer public comment?
Just a quick question.
And state your name and address, please.
Brad, I'm at 5743 Quail Ridge. The next steps, you guys made your recommendation for no, would be to go to the city council. They can either take your recommendation or leave it. That's how it
Yes.
goes.
yeah. All right. And so that's when you guys can do all this all over again and know that it will have a bigger, greater impact.
They make the final decisions.
Yeah.
Makes sense, okay, cool. All right, and then if it ever comes to pass, talking about the plat, would we
There's more hearings.
just
after
come
that.
back here?
It's the same
Same
thing,
format.
same avenue. So it'll come back here for us to review and recommend or deny, and then it'll go back to city council for their decision.
Okay.
And you can go on to the Rathdrum City website and it'll show you all the meetings. Like,
Gotcha.
click on planning and zoning, click on city council, and it'll tell you when they meet, and it'll tell you what
The
the agenda
agenda.
is, what's on there.
Okay.
So that if there's something that's important to you, you can come and participate. Well, you can come to all of them if you want, but.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you.
But I would like to state that city council does take into consideration the planning and zoning board. I mean, they are
Yeah.
recommending for their staff report and their minutes, their input is taken by the city council.
Okay, makes sense.
I couldn't hear, who makes the final decision?
City council.
City council.
Oh, okay.
All right, is there anybody else? All right, and again, state your name and address and.
It's Teresa Pearson, it's 13493 Axel Court. And I just wanted to ask if anybody's thinking or if there's anything in the works about beautifying the city. Like, I look at Celtice and the roundabouts and they all are, have sculptures and landscape things on them, and we end up with 41 ending in Rathdrum and there's nothing. The park has dried dead weeds and, the swales aren't grass and watered like you make the developers do. I was just curious if there was anything, because I walk a lot and I see, unkempt and.
That would probably be up to Parks and Rec, but there's a lot of
And the
times-
mayor.
A lot of times, developments, they don't, what is it? They don't donate land anymore. It's something else where the city was able to buy land and then turn it into parks and do other things with it. And
If you see areas of concern, you can always call into Parks and Rec and let them know what area you're looking at so that they can make it a priority to make it look better.
Part of the issue may be that Rathdrum City Codes makes the maintenance and upkeep of the swales in the public right-of-way adjacent to their property the responsibility of the property owner. So if you drive down the street, you see a big spot of dead nothing in the swale, it's because the guy who owns the property isn't maintaining it as required.
Right by Majestic Park.
I'm not sure what's going on.
But
But sometimes it's just because that guy's
That's the
just not
city park.
doing it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there anybody else that would like to offer comment?
My name's Aaron Arnold.
And
I'm
address?
new to the area. I'm 4265 East Pole Line up in Post Falls. I've been around the United States quite a bit. Lived in Texas for 54 years. And I have seen development come through, commercial go through on a scale that is just astronomical. You're a small community, small town, small ideals, and it's great that what y'all are doing. I understand on both sides of people wanting jobs. They need jobs. They also need housing. And it's a balance act. It's a hard job to do. Somebody has to make the decision. And a well-informed community will work with city council as long as no smoke and mirrors and everybody is truthful up front and keep it simple. Now I hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year. I'm enjoying being here, but I hope you hold true to people's concerns and values and try to take that in consideration first before greed, money, and politics. Thank you.
Well spoken.
Would anybody else like to testify or offer comment? It's not testifying, it's really offering comment.
My name's Ken Pierce, I live the same place you do. 13493 Axel Court. I was just wondering if you guys had any inside knowledge on, like, our Super One's kind of small. And with all this new development going on, I see south of Brookshire, something going on down there. I don't know if that's residential or not, but Is there any commercial projects that are gonna give us more grocery stores around here, closer to where we live, that you guys may know about at all?
I know of every commercial operation down in there.
No one likes building one out this way?
I think the issue is that there's not enough people here that want that for jobs.
Well, it's coming quick,
Well,
so.
there's I believe the rooftops, right, need roofs to do it, and if you're gonna build a great big business like a Super One, probably, if I was making money from one, better to put it right where all the people are already going, in Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls.
So there's
I think there
nothing.
was a second grocery store here at one point,
And it went out of
and
business.
it went out
now
of
it's
business
Bymore.
because there wasn't enough people here for it.
Went out of business because the lease was too high in that strip mall.
Oh, that was right. And another one.
And it was a way better store than because they had a 10-pound meat sale every Friday.
There's an industrial lot next to your house where a grocery store could
There's
go.
124 acres there.
Well, is there any other any other comments that a visitor would like to make? Okay.
Nope. I make a
Seeing none?
motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.